Hi, my name is Steve and welcome to the Seaside Allotment channel, and today I'm planting probably my favourite winter veg, which is field beans. And why would field beans be my favourite? Well, it comes down to the fact that they're probably the least work and the cheapest and one of the most productive and tastiest of all the winter veg. So it's really quite a hard act to beat. They grow outside, they're dead easy to plant, they feed the soil, they're a substitute, and I like them just as much as spinach. They're really great in smoothies. They're only moderate in oxalic acid, so they're actually better in smoothies and things than spinach from that perspective. They grow all the way through winter, and yeah, they're just amazing. I love them. So I'm going to show you how I prepare the beds and plant them. This is a little bit early for planting them, really. Normally we'd plant them in October, but I've got a bed free, and so I thought, well, why not start them in September? We'll see how they go. We'll probably be eating them in October, and they'll just make a really nice complement to the true spinach, which we'll also be eating at that time. And if we get an early frost in October, then, and that knocks out the New Zealand spinach, then we've got a supply of these field beans. So you basically eat them just the way that you would eat a broad bean top. It's just that rather than waiting for the broad bean to be, whatever, 3 or 4 foot, 2 or 3 foot high before you take the tips out, with these you take the tips out when the plant is, this sort of height, and when you do that, it throws up a second shoot. And then you take that tip out and it throws up another shoot. So it just keeps on throwing up these shoots. And so you're just eating the tenderest little tip of the broad beans. And yeah, it doesn't really matter if anything damages them, if you get like a really hard frost that burns a bit, because they'll just throw new shoots up. Where I'm planting them is not ideal because it is a little bit shaded by a big tree. But more importantly, you just get loads of debris from this tree falling on them, and loads of leaves and twigs and stuff like that all the way through winter. So I might have to put a little mesh tunnel over the top of at least half of the bed that gets the worst of this debris falling on it, just to protect them, because otherwise it just means that they're just covered with mouldy leaves all the time and you're forever cleaning them off. But other than that, that's great. Now we will be sowing more beds of field beans on Jennie's plot. I'll actually show you on the tour video, which comes out after this, where I'm going to sow those. And the rule is that we always sow them in beds that we're going to sow brassicas in the spring, because they do actually put nitrogen into the little nodules on the roots, unlike broad beans or peas, where those nodules are depleted if you leave them to grow on to the point at which they're flowering and making new beans in the pods. So that's basically what happens, is just a flow of nitrogen. The chemistry is probably all wrong, but a flow of nitrogen from the nodules in the root into the peas and the beans. But in this case, because we never let them actually set, flower and grow pods, because we're always harvesting them when they're little plants like this, then there's loads of nitrogen in those nodules. We've had a fabulous harvest of brassicas in the bed where we left the roots of the broad beans in. So yeah, let me show you the packet and what I'm going to do. So these are the ones I'm buying, and they're just generic green manure field beans. I always buy them from Grow Seeds because I know that this variety is particularly great, and of course there could be all sorts of other things that are just generically called field beans that aren't as good, but anyway, they're cheap as chips, so these field beans are going to be replacing the New Zealand spinach in our diet. And this is frost tender, and of course the field beans aren't. This is the first bed, and that there is the tree. So I've pre-watered the ground. I'm just going to press them in just about 1/2 inch really, so you'll still be able to see them, because then I'm going to put a mulch of spent mushroom compost on top of this bed. So I'm going to get on with that. So that's all planted. In theory you can just broadcast them, but since it only takes 2 or 3 minutes to plant them at 10 centimetre centres, then that's what I've done. In fact, probably slightly bigger than 10 centimetre centres, because in my case I'm going to be harvesting these really heavily over the whole of winter, and so I'll give them a little bit more space. This bed was previously onions, so I'm going to mulch them with 4 bags of spent mushroom compost, 40 litre bags, and these are about £1.50 each, so that's £6, and the field beans are a few quid, so let's say £10 in total, and we'll harvest £10 a week off that bed, so it's a good investment. So there we go, that's all done. We'll probably harvest about £300 worth of veg off that bed in its lifetime over winter, and so you can see what I mean. It's incredibly productive, but at a time of year as well when really all you've got to eat are brassicas, it's really nice to have something that's an alternative, and so we will use this, as I said, in smoothies, we'll use it in soups, in stir fries, anywhere really that you could use spinach. So highly recommended field beans. Not to everybody's taste, I must admit, so probably out of 10 people, 8 people will like them, 2 people won't, based on our experience. So looking forward to that, looking forward to seeing whether putting them in a month early is a good idea or a bad idea, but as I said, we've got plenty more space for brassicas that are going to be prepared like this. So yeah, so there we go. Improve your soil, improve your diet, field beans. See you soon. Oh, let me know if you do it, I'd be really interested.